America taking back the Panama Canal would allow the United States to hijack a huge chunk of world trade affecting the entirety of the planet, especially the east coast of the United States. It is the fifth busiest shipping lane on the planet, and 70% of that traffic is either coming from or going to the United States. 4% of international trade goes through that port, and it is by far the most important waterway for all of Latin America. And it is crucial for trade between Europe, Asia, North and South America. China is Latin America's largest trading partner, and about $500 billion takes place between this continent and the nation. And about $300 billion of China's goods goes through the Panama Canal to the east coast United States. Japan also employs the Panama Canal, but not as much as China. They only put about $15 billion annually through there. And I'll get to the relevance of that later. We can't forget Vietnam, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and India. They also heavily rely on the Panama Canal for international trade. The number one product shipped through the Panama Canal is liquefied natural gas, which has become very important since the Russia-Ukraine war. This liquid natural gas comes from the United States, and the top three importers of it are South Korea, Japan, and China. If you take a few minutes to put all of this together, you could see that China is heavily reliant on transit through the Panama Canal, which is why they want to control as much of it as they can. Now, President-elect Trump's claim about China completely controlling the Panama Canal is a gross exaggeration. That's not true. That is still within the domain of Panama. But the U.S. gaining control of it means they can create a choke point for their number one economic and military rival. The Panama Canal generates billions of dollars in annual revenue through transit fees that they charge to any country that wants to access it. And if that canal fell under the control of the United States, they could start hiking the rates for China and other economic competitors, but lowering the fees for Japan, South Korea, India. It would give the United States even more of an incredible degree of leverage against all of Asia, especially China. The U.S. could economically punish China by making it more expensive to go through the Panama Canal than them taking another route that would have to take them all the way to the tip of South America, all the way back up north, which is a costly journey. It can cause a great deal of damage to the Chinese economy, but it would grow Japan, South Korea, any other Asian country that wanted to cooperate with the United States. The backlash would also cause a great deal of economic troubles for this entire continent in the South, and that is another form of leverage that could be used by the United States. The economic damage caused by such a restriction would by far impact Brazil the most, which is one of the leading countries in the BRICS cooperative. And that same leverage could be used against the wealthiest part of the United States, the East Coast. Internal negotiations and conflicts are occurring all the time between the U.S. government and other business interests. And if the U.S. government threatens to start imposing fees on any goods trafficking through the Panama Canal to any of these other companies that are based in the East Coast, guess what? That affects their profit margin. The U.S. government could cause supply disruptions to firms that don't want to play ball in the United States and maybe generate more business for their competitors who want to cooperate. For example, EQT is the largest natural gas producer in the United States, and they are based in Pennsylvania. If the U.S. government wants something from EQT that EQT doesn't want to give, they could just say, okay, well, that natural gas that you need to get through the Panama Canal is going to become much more expensive to transport. What do you think any corporation in their right mind would do? Now, I'm not saying that President-elect Trump is actually going to seize the Panama Canal again, because that would be a huge diplomatic blunder. But there are a host of economic and diplomatic reasons why it would be lucrative for the United States to do such a thing. It's true that the United States built the Panama Canal from 1897 to 1904, and we had full utilization of it up until 1999. But it was sold that year because of a deal made by Jimmy Carter 20 years before. His reasons for doing that would be for the betterment of overall international trade, and that is the mentality of a rising tide would lift all boats, so the United States would still benefit from this ease of passage. China hasn't been gaining more influence in the Panama Canal because they are bullying and blustering and making broad threats. They're gaining this because they are going about it the right way, economically, and the United States can do the same thing if they really wanted to. If the United States forcibly seized the Panama Canal, it would create a great wave of economic uncertainty all over the planet. Maybe it would make America money in the long term, but in the near term, billions would suffer. Every single major market would move in the downward because of such an authoritarian gesture by a country that's supposed to represent freedom and democracy. But again, as you've heard me say in my previous post, I think the seizure of the Panama Canal is just bluster by the incoming president-elect. Just like what he's been saying about Greenland. maybe, just maybe, when negotiations go on between utilization of the Panama Canal and the United States, the opposing party may be more willing to make certain concessions if they have this threat of a forced seizure. And like I've said before in an earlier post, it is quite a dark, underhanded move, and we should be performing better than this. If you are trying to play a fair game and your opposition is willing to play unfairly, it's true, they have an advantage over you, but that doesn't mean you need to steep even lower than them. Beat them at their own game more craftily. I am the Geo Hussar. The Panama Canal belongs to Panama. Let's not start another age of imperialism. Thanks for watching.